Hello, and welcome to this edition of Faith to Live By. I'm Pam Christian, your host and truth advocate, where I seek to help us explore current events from a biblical and prophetic perspective so we, as God's children, can know how He wants us to respond. For those who are regular listeners, I want to take a moment to thank you for your loyalty. You know, I pour myself into this project each and every week, fully devoted to being one of your most trusted truth advocates, even when my personal life is nearly overwhelming. And I say nearly overwhelming because as a child of God, we can place our faith in Him, confident He will help us through anything we experience. And to those of you who are joining for the first time, I sincerely welcome you and hope you too will decide to become a regular listener. I don't normally share my personal life with this podcast, but I want you to know what I'm dealing with, mostly so we can establish a deeper bond, because deeper bonds are what we're all going to need in the coming days. You may have heard me briefly mention that our grown daughter needed prayer. It's actually been a life and death situation since before Thanksgiving 2024. The doctors didn't think she'd make it, which was the perfect time for me to stand strong in my faith and believe God to supernaturally intervene, and He has. We've seen several miracles, and we're in need of several more, so if you would, please pray for our daughter, my husband and me, and our extended family to see healing, deliverance, restoration, and transformation. As you can imagine, because of all this, we've been living in extreme pressure and stress daily for months, and then, on January 8th, a 40-year-old 75-foot Aleppo pine tree was blown over and crashed into our house, causing considerable damage and taking out our internet. And this was during the high windstorms that fanned the devastating fires in Southern California. No one was injured, and the damage to our house and property could have been much worse. And thank God, our insurance will cover the repairs. It's just going to take a lot of time and effort. And this occurred about 2:45 in the morning, which woke my husband and myself up to a fright, to be sure. Unless you've experienced something similar, you can't imagine the sound and the shaking of the home as the tree crashed into the roof. Add to these major events the smaller disruptive events of life, such as a punctured and flat tire, my computer crashing, causing my email client to fail as a result, and my cardiologist not liking what he's seeing. And, well, it's been challenging times, to say the least. But God has been prophetically forewarning us of the spiritual intense times we would experience, so we must not lose heart. We must be even more vigilant in our faith and how we choose to display our faith. If you heard last week's podcast, then you know being vigilant in our faith was the all-important theme. The spiritual warfare is, in my opinion, the most intense it's ever been in our lifetimes. Consider the victims of Hurricanes Milton and Helene, and the fires in Maui and California. I'm confident we will be learning much more about the sinister origins of these devastations. Praise God, President Trump has stepped in to help the survivors of these events. We must continue deciphering what is taking place in the spiritual and natural world so we can seek God regarding how He wants us, His children, to respond. I am confident God wants His children to be united in the faith and supporters for one another. I'm confident God wants us to partner with Him to see evil removed and righteousness prevail. I'm confident God wants us to share the love of Christ and the message of the gospel to the people all around us who are desperate to find real and certain hope. So, I seek to help you be all God wants you to be with the production of this weekly podcast. I seek to bring you truth and direction and hope. Today's program is no exception. I have Dr. Scott Young as my guest. His area of expertise has to do with the radical changes in governments and politics and the impact that has on world economies and how all of this is playing out to ultimately reveal God's redemptive plans. Also confident that we'll be in a much better place later this year, before I bring on Dr. Scott, I want to give you more specific details about our planned trip to Greece. I'm truly excited to offer this as something wonderful to look forward to, considering everything we've been through. We are very close to needing to make commitments for the trip, so if you've been toying with the idea of joining us, listen up. We have a tremendous trip planned where we can all meet up in Thessaloniki, Greece, where we will spend 2 days. Then the next day, we'll travel to Kalimbaka, Greece. Then the following day, we'll be taken to Athens, where we'll spend 4 days. So we're talking a total of 7 days on the tour. You'll need to arrive in Thessaloniki by the 19th, where we will all stay in a 4-star hotel. Then plan your return flight from Greece on the 26th of October. Now, we want between 20 and 34 people. And the more people who sign up, the less the cost per person for all of us. This means you want to encourage as many people as possible to join us. As it stands now, with the minimum number of people, the total tour is $2,699 per person, double occupancy, or $3,599 per person, single occupancy. Breakfast is included from the 20th through the 26th, and dinner is included on the 19th and the 22nd. And to give you as much leisure time as possible, lunch is yours to do as you like, with some afternoons, including tour activity, and other afternoons completely to your leisure. Registration fees of $300 per person are due at the time of sign-up, and registration is scheduled to close March 31st. Cancellation and refunding of registration fees are available up through June 15th. They are not refundable after that date. Final payment must be made by July 15th. Now, I know you want more details, so I encourage you to visit my webpage called Beyond the Podcast, where you can see additional details about the trip and actually sign up to attend. And I hope you don't delay and that you get as many people to join you as possible so we can all save money. And as an optional bonus, we are working on the addition of a 4-day cruise of the Greek islands following the ground tour. Again, use the link in the show notes to visit Beyond the Podcast page to learn more and sign up right away. Now, let's turn our attention to my interview with Dr. Scott Young and learn from him how we have every reason to expect great days ahead, as evidenced by current events. Dr. Scott Young, I'm so glad to have you back now, especially after the inauguration, while heads are spinning, watching everything President Trump is doing and also watching what the opposition is trying to accomplish. It's hard for a lot of people to make sense, but what I would like us to do is to help people make sense out of everything that's going on. There are people who are more awake to the truth today than ever. But there's still a large percentage of people that need to understand the truth and put these puzzle pieces together in a way that they finally understand what is truly going on. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for you to help us do just that.
I think the reality is their heads are going to spin in a good way. I mean, they're going to go, wait a second, why is it so good for me? You know, normally the head spin is all in a bad thing or evil things. What if it's a head spin for good things? And you're just trying to figure out how it works out well for you.
And that's exactly what I believe and what I hope we can bring out here. Let's start with the inauguration address that President Trump gave, unlike any other that we've ever seen in history. It was quite interesting to see the former presidents and other people sitting behind President Trump while he is running off a list of what he plans to do and why. It was the whys that were really ringing out loud. So why don't you start with talking about the inauguration address?
Well, I mean, I thought it was funny. Now we're still trying to figure out why he didn't put his hand on the Bible. The easiest one is that Roberts did it too fast.
That's what I believe.
There are two other possibilities. JFK didn't put his hand on the Bible. Don't know if that's an allusion to that one. Could be. Andrew Jackson is in, and every single time they do a shot in the White House, that's in there too. So could that be an allusion to those, two presidents overall? The second one is the more fun, crazy one. And I just say the fun part. Did he already take the oath of office? That's one thing kind of moving around. Don't know.
I've heard that speculated as well. I've also heard that he didn't want to put his hand on the Bible to take an oath for the corporation.
Right.
He wants to make sure that everybody knows he's the president of the United States.
And I think that the last one I said and what you're talking about is in that same realm. And so I think for most people, the reality is, I'm fine with any of those in essence. I'm fine with the allusion to Kennedy or the conversation of a previous point that he already did take the oath of office, or he's saying, I'm not taking in the way that you did it. I mean, I'm kind of a rebel in a lot of ways. I just don't go with authority and that viewpoint. And he is so rebel type.
Hmm.
Um, but I had another person that said this way, and this is her words. Charity just said, it was like he took, and she was there. She goes, it was like he took his AK-47 and shot everywhere. And I thought it's funny, that he, you could see Biden and Harris were just like whipped little puppies that they had no answers because he's destroying everything that's ever said. Normally, there's levels of magnanimity inside of there, and he destroys them left and right. And then his follow-up after he signs the oath of office, and he does some when he had to walk down those stairs, and there's probably about 7,000 yards or whatever it was that he walked. He and Melania on her like what 5-inch heels. Um, so he's talking and he tells you all the things that he wanted to say, and Melania didn't want him to say that, right? And but what we mostly don't realize is that he was signing some of the most secretive executive orders in the back. And I'm fascinated that he goes and signs a ton of them in Capital One Center. Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards are there, and then goes and in the Oval Office, and it's clearly the Oval Office. So none of the illusion silliness that we have with Biden, because we have Andrew Jackson in the background, and there's a bunch of pictures behind the scenes with all of the White House press that are standing there asking questions, peppering him for 48 minutes.
Hmm.
So I thought it was just fascinating, and he's setting up the stage for that.
Hmm. Well, in the inaugural address, he did identify several things specific to finances, economy, the price of goods, a number of things. And that's really your area of expertise is the economy.
Right.
Let's get into some of that. You mentioned the IRS. Let's start there.
Well, I mean, he's already been given the illusion all the way through his campaign. He said no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. And as a business owner who puts in his own information into my payroll thing, there's no other way you can tax anything. If you can't tax bonuses, overtime, and basically the base pay, there is no tax. But yet, if he said no taxation at the time frame of the campaign, people would be freaking out on him. Then he just called it, and it's a great troll, the External Revenue Service.
Hmm.
It is a gorgeous way of doing it. And frankly, it's brilliant because what it does is it says, I'm going to do tariffs and there's going to be zero taxation upon the people from their income. And see, I have a new video coming out here, and I haven't even worked it up because of a person that asked this long question, and I've cut a snot load of videos up, and they're all about that. And most people are just barely catching up to that point. I mean, when you're running at $2 trillion in the hole, you don't normally take away your biggest thoroughbred, the IRS, out, and he's doing it.
What do you think that would do for people who are underwater with the IRS, who have back taxes and such that they owe?
It would wipe it out. I mean, it's because Representative Carter is the one that put together the bill. See, all of these things have a bill somewhere in the House going through and that kind of thing. So, and Carter said, yeah, it'll just basically wipe it out. No, the date he put it through was going to be for January 3rd of 2025. But in essence, we're always thinking, 1 year in arrears. We're always thinking of the taxation in 2024, right? So, then you have to ask the question, well, wait a second, if we're not going to pay it in 2025, do we pay our taxes in 2024? And first of all, I can't see anyone who, if it gets passed, which I think it is going to get passed no matter what, and it would be passed in a unique way, because we don't have to worry about this Congress, which is all pretty fraudulent in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It will go through, and then how do you collect taxes on April 15th or whatever the exact day is? I don't know how you do it, because I don't know of anyone that would pay it.
I've been wondering myself.
I don't think so. I think it wipes it out.
Well, this is what's fun, I say, about what's going on right now since the inauguration is we're not certain about a lot of things right now, but we know we're going to find out the answers very soon. It's not going to be long and drawn out.
True.
All right, well, let's talk about staying with the topic of finances. What about Trump's executive order to ban central bank digital currency? How does that impact all of us?
It's super fun. We were talking about this before. I mean, because we got a lot of fear porn people, the truther movement, and they're nice people. All they want to do is tell you the fearful things that gets clicks on in social media. I mean, and I understand that it's easier to do a fearful message that makes you titillated than to do a hopeful message because less people are interested in hopeful messages. And the reality is the the fear-based message is not of God.
Right,
I
right.
mean,
I was going to say that, so I'm glad you brought that out.
and so it's not of God. And here's the point: central bank digital currencies is a creation of the New World Order. It is a creation of the communist kind of idea. It's a deeper untethering of the SWIFT system of the Fed. So, and every time the Fed says something, I just go, yeah, 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 you're not doing anything anyway. And in essence, within one tiny paragraph, he wipes them out. And he doesn't just say it, it's in an executive order from an executive branch that has to necessarily answer to him. And then he put in that same executive order, he talks about digital assets. Well, and I was sitting over here, I was explaining this. I just had to I got a new credit card from my, just a new updated time frame, right? And so you have to call and punch in your credit card number, right?
Activate the card.
And I was looking thinking about that as you were saying that. That thing has credit limit on it, right? And I pay it off every month, and it's a business credit card. But the puppy doesn't have any asset to it. Yeah, I could get cash out of it, but it isn't an asset. It's always a liability.
Right.
And so when you have a CBDC, it is a pure digital creation, and it is an extension of the fiat currency. Well, the fiat currency is dying in front of our face. I mean, it's far beyond life support in essence. And and so the reality with a digital asset, and he even wrote those statements in here. He didn't say Bitcoin, he didn't say XLM, he didn't use anyone else. He just said digital asset. He's basically saying an asset-backed currency, which is gold-backed, which is asset is intimated as a gold-backed kind of point. Now, people always worry, well, could it be Mark of the Beast? No, it's not Mark of the Beast. That's what a CBDC type is. But a digital gold-backed currency, you have to have a physical nature to it. You're still going to have physical currency that will come out. And it is exactly the kind of stuff that we know from the quantum financial system and the new US note that's coming.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about central bank digital currency, you're also talking about a way to control the masses in terms of their behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Would you address that a little bit? Because I think that's part of the underbelly of central bank digital currency that a lot of people don't really understand.
Well, I just did a video and I'm launching it, later on next week. And Elijah List has me on next Thursday. I think it's the 30th. And I pulled a level of, I think, 3 different videos, and they are unbelievably fascinating. In China, 1.4 billion people, 800 million of them are in debt. The malls in China, in is it Bangkok, it's like they're empty. I mean, it's Christmas time and there's an empty mall. No one has any money. So what they do, if you get, deep in debt, and this one woman was talking about, she was $2.8 million of yuan or million yuan, which is, I think it was like 384,000 in American money. So it's a little different in setup there. But what they do is they freeze their accounts. Then they secondly tell you they send out your credit score to your friends and family. So every contact you have, they put it out on social media. And so you can't get any loans. And they say, well, you just borrow the money. Well, if you can't go anywhere and you've lost all of your assets and all this, they're completely locked up. The reality is digital assets, if you have a pure digital system, that system can be manipulated, turned on and off. And so we're seeing it in China and we're kind of seeing it in America, but we haven't seen the full level of that. That's not going to occur. This is why Trump is doing something that is unbelievable in that way, almost for a lot of people.
Well, what do you think we are going to see? I know I've had you on the program before, and we've talked about the dollar being a new note. We've talked about it being gold backed. We've talked about how with NESARA, every nation will be sovereign. And so that also brings into question some of what President Trump has been saying tongue in cheek about Canada being the 51st state. Let's get into that a little bit. And what do you think President Trump actually means when he's talking about Canada becoming the 51st state?
Well, you have to ask yourself who he's talking to. You know, as a writer myself, I always say, who's your audience? And his audience was directly Trudeau. So Trudeau gets tons of money from America every single year. I mean, what is it? Several $100 billion that he gets every single year. You go, he's so in his words, and I went back and looked at it. He's basically saying, I'll give you so much money that I should just make you a state. Or let's put it in another way. It's like my kid goes off to college and I'm paying for all of her school and I give her an allowance and she goes, I just don't want to do it your way. You're a jerk. I'm like, well, then you can pay for it yourself or you can live here at home. In essence, what he said is we could just make you one of the states. But most people are taking it the wrong way. They don't realize it's more of a tongue-in-cheek kind of statement. Of course, Canada needs to be her own country. Listen, Canadians are pretty different than Americans, and they don't need to be, dominated by another nation.
They need their own freedom. I know I've had the pleasure of having Prophet Barry Wunsch on the show, and he's really helped us understand what the atmosphere is like in Canada. And you're right, Canada is unique and it should revel in being unique. And hopefully we're going to see that happen very soon too, where Canada will indeed have the right leadership and be able to proudly become everything God intended the people of Canada to be.
And that's what I want. And by the way, we should want that for every nation. We should, I mean, when I'm in Oklahoma and, if someone's in New Jersey, right? She should want what's good for her in New Jersey, and I should want what's good for me in Oklahoma. It doesn't mean, no, we're also part of a union as well. But, I'm going to be focused on the needs of my place. And I was talking with basically an ex-employee now, who's very different in her philosophy than me. And I'm like, you know what? Why do we have to have it you versus me, in essence? I mean, as a big football fan, I wouldn't walk up to a table with all kinds of Pittsburgh Steeler fans and tell them, you're idiots. I'd say, we want those Pittsburgh Steeler fans to be Pittsburgh Steeler fans. Who cares, right? But when it comes to politics, they want us separated.
Polarized.
We're all Americans.
Yeah.
Even if you have a viewpoint of a left-leaning kind of thing or a right one or a mid, whatever, the reality is we want what's good for us here in America. And the reality is every single country in the world should be focusing on themselves and not focusing on the people around them because they got enough problems within themselves. And when they do that, the world is an amazing place.
Absolutely. God created us all different to be celebrated and to be appreciating one another. And even in the Bible, it talks about one body, many parts, and we need each part to do its work. So that's exactly what's coming out here. And you've said before when you've been on my program that NESARA and GESARA are ways that the nations will be sovereign. We will have gold-backed money. We will be able to do world economy in better ways than we ever have before. But you've also said that you believed the blackout, the emergency broadcast system blackout, the lack of power, lack of communication would be a precursor, would be an indicator that we're very close for the actual launch, if you will, of NESARA. Can you talk about that just a little bit, please? I'll stop here and bring you more information about NESARA next week. What you heard today ought to get you excited for next week's podcast. Dr. Scott and I talked about President Trump's inaugural address, but equally fun to watch was President Trump address the World Economic Forum. If you didn't see it, you'll find a link in the show notes. We have a lot of reasons to celebrate and rejoice. However, as I shared last week, and I've heard from other prophets, we need to temper our celebration with the reality that we are still in an intense battle with the enemy of God putting up his greatest fight as he's being taken down. Just as Nehemiah's team rebuilt the temple using one hand to place mortar and bricks and a sword in the other hand, so should be our stance. These are the days when God's people are being expected by God to partner with him and rebuild his kingdom to see his will done on earth as it is in heaven. And as we do that, we must remain alert and vigilant, expecting the enemy to cause trouble. In Amanda Grace's video titled An Urgent Word from the Lord Before the Inauguration and a Warning, which she posted on January 16th, God said, and I loosely quote, "The foundation of one nation under God must not be destroyed. Yet there is blasphemy on both sides. There is willful infiltration around President Trump. Billionaires and intellectuals are as titans to Donald John Trump. If Donald Trump does not listen to me within the first 3 months of his administration, there will be sifting. Within the first 6 months, there will be shaking. AI is welcomed in the White House more than my voice, and this must be changed. The enemy dwells in AI. It looks like a gift, but it's a curse. You're bringing a curse upon yourself. Corporate giants, social media, must surrender to my will and my ways. And this time there are too many competing bulls and idols in the White House, and this must be cleared out, and it will be, says the Lord." I want you to please watch Amanda's video, so you'll find a link in the show notes. Then on January 24th, Amanda put out another video. This one was called A Prophetic Warning, Stargate and America's Golden Age. In this video, she offered a harsh warning to President Trump about the advisors he's listening to. She also gave us insight as to what it was like for those attending the presidential inauguration, which I was very sorry to hear. I've included a link to that video in the show notes as well. Amanda's focus was on recent headlines that seemed to be fulfilling the January 16th prophecy. Headlines and social media report conflicts between Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and also between Elon Musk and Sam Altman. Surely, these seem to be the start of what God warned about. You'll recall President Donald Trump previously announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short, and already Vivek has stepped down. You'll recall President Trump previously announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short, and already Vivek has stepped down based on deep philosophical differences regarding the direction and the function of DOGE. Vivek had initially been enthusiastic about the mission of DOGE to streamline all sorts of government operations and thus reduce federal spending through budget cuts and mass firings. While Vivek Ramaswamy advocated for dismantling the administrative state using existing laws and reducing the federal workforce, Elon Musk focused on leveraging technology and data mining to achieve similar goals. Additionally, Elon Musk of Tesla and Sam Altman, head of OpenAI, went public via social media with their differences over President Trump's announcement of Project Stargate. With just these two issues, we have reasons to be concerned about Trump being more influenced by billionaires than he is the voice of God. Again, as we celebrate the many good things that are happening, we must remain vigilant in our spiritual warfare. We must pray and intercede for President Trump's ability to keenly discern truth and error, and for him to listen first and foremost to the voice of God. My guest, Dr. Scott Young, spoke of his own video, which is also available January 29th, and you'll want to be able to see that, so look for the link in the show notes. This is a very critical time for everyone who belongs to God the Father through faith in Jesus Christ by the power of the Holy Spirit. We must take our place in prayer, doing spiritual warfare, praying as God instructs, praying His will be done. Faith Marie Baxco, a Canadian prophet, also addressed this. She recently posted that this is the year for the fulfillment of prophecies. She expressed this is the year for the return of God's original intentions for our lives and for our nations. Those who have said yes to God should be intently listening for their marching orders, which will allow us to step into our divine destinies as each of us is called to our respective calling and ministry. All these years leading up to this year have been years of preparation, and now we will see many of God's people called out of obscurity and into positions of action and authority. She spoke of the great transference of wealth that Dr. Scott has also spoken of that will come from three places. 1, people God has told to give. 2, return of stolen treasures. And 3, from the treasury of the King. What prophecies or miracles are you waiting to be fulfilled in your life? Where is your passion, your interests, and areas in our world you would like to see changed to align with God's will? God-given opportunities are becoming evident now as never before. As Faith said it, President Donald Trump is the battering ram against demonic systems and structures for God's people to pick up the pieces and rebuild again, only this time according to God's plan. Eric Burton of Groundbreakers International has said this Hebrew year of 5785, which corresponds to our 2025, is the year of manifestation of miracles. Eric reminds us that there are blessings in our obedience, emphasizing the importance of our being active with God, to be in partnership with God, to see His kingdom will done on earth as it is in heaven. And Dutch Sheets recently spoke again about the synergy of the ages. By this he refers to the godly foundation our governmental and spiritual fathers of the past established that became overrun with evil, now being reestablished by God's people today. We know God has been at work exposing every manner of evil and corruption wherever it exists, so we, as God's children, can partner with Him to rebuild. These are truly the most exciting days ever to be alive. I hope and pray all God's people will become engaged with what God is doing, and we will one day hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." You won't want to miss next week's podcast, where I'll bring you part 2 of my interview with Dr. Scott Young. Now, I ask you to listen to my closing announcements and take advantage of the many goods and services I bring you in an effort to at least cover the cost of this podcast. The first announcement is about the Greece trip, so listen carefully so you can be sure to join us in October 2025. It may seem far off, but most people make plans for a significant vacation about a year in advance. So if you haven't already expressed interest in traveling with us in October 2025, now is the time to do so. We want to have about 30 people total because this size group works best for the specific tour I have in mind. We'll be walking the footsteps of the Apostle Paul. I'm using the time between now and February 2025 to determine if we have enough interest, and the trend indicates we definitely should. We have just about 30 people on the list now, but I'd like to have more because when it comes to the actual day of making a commitment, things could have changed, and I want to be able to have at least 30 actually attend the tour. So, if you think you'd like to be part of the Faith to Live By Christian tour with me in Greece during October 2025, now is the time to get your name and number in your party on the list. There's no obligation at this point. You're just expressing your interest. Attendees need to arrange their own air travel to and from the Athens International Airport. To get your name on the list, send an email to faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com with the word Greece in the subject line. In the body of the email, provide your name, contact information, and number of people you expect to be in your party. This will place your name on the interested in attending list, but does not obligate you in any way. It merely assures you have first right of refusal come February 2025 when down payments are due. If you didn't get the details written down that I just shared, simply visit my Beyond the Podcast page using the link in the show notes. If you like what you hear from me with this podcast, I highly recommend my book series, my award-winning blog, and consider signing up for my certificate course in apologetics. My aim with that course is to help people learn how not only to use apologetics to share truth with others, but to help Christian leaders incorporate apologetics into their respective ministries so more Christians are learning how to share their faith. You can learn more by using the link in the show notes. For now, I offer my weekly podcasts, my blog, and bi-monthly e-newsletter at no cost. And certainly I have hard costs associated with doing all I do. If you've been blessed by my work and would like to help my work reach others, why not consider partnering with me? For as little as $10 a month, you can become a partner. Then together we can reach even more people for Jesus. Simply visit my Pamela Christian Ministries homepage and then click on the Give button at the top menu bar. Or if you prefer, you can go directly to the Give page using the link in the show notes. To become a partner, you can use my PayPal or Venmo account, but you will also see other ways you can support my work on that page. Whether you choose to become a monthly partner, give a one-time donation, purchase my books and products from my web store, or support my affiliate sponsors, anything you can do to help me continue this work would be greatly appreciated. And as always, your prayers and telling others about me and my ministry work is much needed. When it comes to my selection of affiliate sponsors, I first look for Christian-owned and operated businesses, and I make a point of personally using the products or services so I can fully endorse them. I seek sponsors that offer products or services you can get via the internet worldwide, and I specifically consider what is common to most people universally. So you'll find health, beauty, and wellness products through Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements and from Operation Tomahawk and from QE Strong. Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements are truly amazing and are available to my listeners for a 5% discount per purchase or a 10% discount for a monthly subscription using the promo code FTLB. Operation Tomahawk is a membership purchase program with an American-owned and operated company offering personal and household care products that are not made of toxins or genetically modified ingredients. Stop buying national brands from corporations that are part of the deep state cabal. Use the link in the show notes, and from the drop-down menu under How Did You Hear About Us, select Pamela Christian, Faith to Live By. You may have heard my interview with Rob Renee about QE Strong. Discover the benefits of quantum energy to overcome all sorts of ailments. Visit QEstrong.com and use the promo code FTLB at checkout to receive your discount. Then, my newest affiliate I'm really excited to bring you is Q Streaming. That's CUE Streaming Television. People with United States addresses can get over 3,000 channels, including live TV with streaming television without a contract. Get all of your local networks and favorite movie and sports and pay-per-view channels for about half of what cable costs. See the video promo link in the show notes to learn more. Affiliate sponsors only provide financial support to me when you purchase what they offer. So before you support Amazon or any other retailer, if I offer what you're looking for, please purchase through me. When it comes to special occasions, birthdays, or Christmas gifts, consider my books, jewelry, CDs, and more from my web store or any of the affiliate goods and services I offer. When you purchase from my web store, be sure to use the promo code TRUTH, TRUTH, to receive a 20% discount. Again, you'll find all the links in the show notes. If you like the content and resource material I bring you with this podcast, you'll find much more by connecting with me through my blog. In fact, my blog has been awarded 2 unsolicited awards for Christian content. And I'm also very active on social media. I can cover much more on social media than I can with this weekly podcast. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my complimentary bi-monthly e-newsletter. I offer encouragement, special offers, and one of my signature recipes with each and every edition. Yep, I'm a foodie and I love to entertain, which is why Faith, Family, Friends, and Food is a bonus segment of my bi-monthly e-newsletter. To receive even more, please be sure to check out my dedicated podcast listeners page, Beyond the Podcast. Here's where we can connect exclusively and you can download complimentary devotionals, resources, and more. On that page, I also ask you to help me learn more about you and what you want by completing the form visible once you scroll down that page. And something that is very easy for you to do and would mean a lot to me is for you to rate, subscribe, or comment on this podcast according to what your preferred listening platform allows. You know how it works. The more likes and subscriptions to this podcast, the more opportunity we have to expand the listening audience. And that means we can reach more people with the gospel message of Jesus while helping people learn how to better apply their Christian faith. I hope you'll join me next week and tell your friends and family to listen right here on Faith to Live By, where we learn how to gain spiritual victory over life's issues. Until next week, I'm Pam Christian, asking you to remember, Christ died for us. The least we can do is live for Him.